Okay, so imagine this. You're on vacation. You're finally trying to relax, and you get a call that your daughter, who's on a trip of her own, has just vanished. Gone. That's the nightmare. Beth and Dave Holloway lived in 2005 when their 18-year-old daughter, Natalie, disappeared in Aruba. And we have a huge stack of articles, news clips, court documents even. You sent us a lot to go through, so let's deep dive into this case together and see what we can uncover.
Yeah, it's a story that captivated the whole world.
Uh-huh.
And for good reason. The fear, the uncertainty, the just desperate search for answers. It's something no parent should ever have to face.
Right. And Natalie, by all accounts, she was just a typical teenager about to graduate high school, excited about her future, good student, active in her community, the kind of kid who had everything going for her.
Exactly. She had earned a full scholarship to the University of Alabama. And this trip to Aruba was supposed to be a celebration, a last hurrah with her classmates before they all went their separate ways.
Aruba. It's supposed to be paradise. Beautiful beaches,
Mm.
friendly people, a safe haven for tourists. You go there to relax.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes this story so unsettling. The idea that something this terrible could happen in a place that's supposed to be so idyllic.
It just shatters that sense of security, that belief that these bad things only happen somewhere else. And what's so striking in all this material you sent is that contrast between the Holloway family's immediate sense of urgency and the perceived slow response from the Aruban authorities.
Yeah, you can feel that tension right from the start.
Yeah.
The Holloways arrive in Aruba. They're frantic, desperate for any information about their daughter, and they're met with this, what they see as casualness, almost a dismissiveness that just adds to their frustration.
There's a quote from Beth Holloway in one of these news articles that really captures this. She said, "It felt like we were screaming into a void. No one seemed to understand the urgency, the sheer terror of not knowing what had happened to our daughter."
It's heartbreaking. And that clash of cultures, the American emphasis on immediate action versus what some saw as a more laid-back approach from Aruban officials. It really fueled the firestorm that was about to erupt.
Yeah, the family felt like they were fighting an uphill battle, not just to find Natalie, but to be taken seriously. And as the days turned into weeks, the media attention intensified, turning this missing person case into an international spectacle.
And then there's Jorn van der Sloot. He's the last person seen with Natalie, this Dutch teenager staying at the same hotel. And his story immediately starts to unravel. First, he claims he dropped her off at the hotel. Then he says they went to the beach. Each new version adds another layer of suspicion.
And the sources you provided paint a very specific picture of him, charismatic but also evasive and manipulative. He gives interviews, but they're full of contradictions and inconsistencies. It's almost as if he's enjoying the attention, even as he denies any involvement in Natalie's disappearance.
There's a real creepiness to it, right? Like he's playing a game with everyone, and the stakes are a young girl's life.
Exactly. And that unsettling feeling, that sense that something isn't right, just permeates this entire investigation. And in the middle of all this confusion and suspicion, the search for Natalie continues. Every lead, every tip, every possible sighting, they chase it all down, but they all lead to dead ends.
It's a roller coaster of hope and despair for the family. You see the Holloways clinging to every possibility only to have it ripped away over and over. The emotional toll must have been just unimaginable.
He really was one of the sources. A documentary about the case really highlights this. There's footage of Beth Holloway breaking down physically and emotionally exhausted. From the constant search, the media scrutiny, the just agonizing lack of answers.
It's hard to even watch, honestly. You can see the pain in her face, the desperation to find her daughter.
Yeah.
But the trail just keeps going cold.
And that frustration mounts. The Holloways are convinced that someone knows something, that there's information being withheld, but they just can't break through that wall of silence.
And the focus starts to shift too, doesn't it? Instead of just finding Natalie, the media lashes onto the cultural differences, the perceived missteps by investigators, the finger-pointing between the Arab authorities and the Holloway family. It becomes a battle of perceptions, almost a reality show. And the real victim, Natalie, gets lost in all the noise.
Exactly. It's a classic example of how media sensationalism can overshadow the human element of a story. And in the meantime, Jorn van der Sloot continues to play his games. He even tries to profit from the tragedy, offering to lead the Holloways to Natalie's body in exchange for a large sum of money.
Just despicable. Preying on their desperation, their willingness to do anything to bring their daughter home. And that, of course, the information he provides is false. Another cruel manipulation in a long line of them.
It's at this point, 5 years after Natalie disappeared, that the case takes a shocking turn. Jorn van der Sloot is arrested in Peru for the murder of another young woman, Stephanie Flores Ramirez. And the parallels are chilling. A young woman, a hotel room van der Sloot, right at the center of it all.
It's like a horrifying echo of what happened in Aruba. And suddenly all those suspicions about Vandersloot, all those red flags, they all come rushing back.
The evidence against him in Peru is overwhelming, and he confesses. It's a moment of bittersweet justice for the Flores Ramirez family, but for the Holloways. It reopens old wounds and brings a fresh wave of grief.
Knowing that the man who likely took their daughter's life is finally being held accountable, but also knowing they may never get the answers they so desperately crave. It's a really complex mix of emotions.
And the legal complexities of the case add another layer of frustration. Because of the statute of limitations, and Aruba Vandersloot can't be charged with Natalie's murder, even though he eventually confesses to it as part of a plea deal in the U.S. on extortion charges.
So he's serving time for extortion, trying to profit from Natalie's disappearance, but not for the murder itself. It's a difficult pill to swallow, especially for the Holloways who fought so hard for justice.
Yeah, the case just becomes this tangle of legalities, jurisdictional issues, international agreements. And while it brings some closure for the Flores Ramirez family, it leaves the Holloways in this kind of legal limbo with more questions than answers.
So where do we even land after all this?
Yeah.
What can we take away from the Natalie Holloway case after all these years? It feels like there are so many layers, so much to unpack.
It really highlights the complexities of these international cases, right? All the cultural differences, the legal hurdles, the way those things can impact an investigation. The Holloways were facing a system that felt alien to them, and that clash, sometimes it felt like it overshadowed the search for Natalie.
And the media frenzy. It's hard to ignore how that shaped everything. It felt like the focus shifted from finding Natalie and went to the conflict, the speculation, the accusations. This heartbreaking story became a spectacle.
And at the center of it all, Joran Vandersloot, this enigmatic figure who managed to avoid any real accountability for so long. His manipulation, his lies, his cruelty, those are the things that stay with you.
It's a reminder, I think, of how easily someone can project an image, a certain charm, and yet there's this darkness underneath. It makes you wonder, how well can we ever really know someone?
It's a chilling thought. It really underscores the importance of critical thinking, questioning what we see and hear, not taking things at face value.
The Holloway case, it may never be fully resolved, but the lessons we can take from it are profound.
Yeah.
It teaches us about the importance of empathy, understanding different perspectives, and never giving up hope, even in the face of all these obstacles.
And it reinforces that heartbreaking truth that sometimes even when the truth comes out, even when justice is served, those scars, they remain. The Holloways, they may never find the closure they're looking for, but their resilience, their determination, it's a testament to the power of love.
This deep dive, it's been tough, no doubt about it. We've confronted loss and justice, the complexities of international law and media scrutiny. But it's also been a reminder of how important these conversations are, shining a light on the dark corners of the world and seeking understanding even when it's difficult.
That's what these deep dives are all about, right? Delving into the complexities, challenging our assumptions, and hopefully coming out of it with a little bit more knowledge, a little more awareness, and a little more empathy for the human experience in all its messy and often heartbreaking forms.
We hope this conversation has given you a new perspective on the Natalie Holloway case, and maybe even inspired you to think differently about the world around you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.